Oh man, so while the market continues to bleed, Luna is now in the spotlight, falling over 20%. Luna is now sitting at $58 after a controversial weekend, which involved what some are saying is a coordinated attack on the UST peg. For those of you who aren't aware, UST is the algorithmically backed stablecoin on the Terra blockchain, okay? And this is pegged to the US dollar, and this peg was attacked over the weekend. It all started off with a sell-off on Curve. Curve has liquidity pools tied to UST. We saw some massive sell-offs putting pressure on the peg. Rumors then started spreading around on Twitter, which led to more money flowing out from Anchor Protocol. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is the price movement here on Luna. A big fall to the downside. If I go to the daily chart, you can see how pronounced this is now. Some big, horrible red candles over the last couple of days. This happened on Saturday, but it still had an effect on the market. Obviously, you got the wider market sell-off, but Luna is down 8% today as Bitcoin is down 4%. It feels like a long time ago that we were at 119, but really it was just on the 5th of April. Crazy sell-off here from 119 to $58 on Luna, which just goes to show that no project is safe right now. This was a project, Luna, which was moving from strength to strength for most of this year whilst Bitcoin was struggling and the wider crypto space was struggling. And it just goes to show you have to be careful. You have to be diversified in your portfolio. Let's take a look at exactly what happened here in this space and also the latest update, because Kwon has just come out with the latest update hitting back against those trying to attack the Terra Luna ecosystem. So just to recap, we'll head over here to this tweet here. Shout out to Root2Fi, great guy on Twitter, and he kind of given us a few bullet points to here talk to. This is how it happened, right? We got the UST sell-off on Curve. Rumors started spreading quickly on Twitter. That led to a 2 billion withdrawal of UST on Anchor. Guys, to put this into perspective, let's head over to DeFi Llama. And of the 22 billion roughly locked in Luna, 12.44 of that is locked in Anchor. So Anchor is by far the largest project on the Terra blockchain, and the majority of people buy UST and they stake that on Anchor to get the impressive yields which you can do on your stablecoin. Now, to put this into perspective, this total value figure on Anchor fell from 14 billion to 11.2 on Saturday. That's a 20% fall. That is no mean fall. It's recovered a little bit here, but you can see the damage that has had over the last 7 days, falling 25% almost on Anchor. So a big move. Now, also to keep that into perspective, of all the UST in circulation is 18 billion. Okay, so this was a big movement, which gets a lot of people thinking whether this was a coordinated attack. Now, interestingly, when you analyze some of the movements on liquidity pools, you saw 150 million at the same time was being moved by Terraformer Labs. Now, they said they were just shuffling between pools, but again, just something to point out for you guys to do your research on to see if this is a little bit controversial. They then redeposited 100 million after realizing UST was trading at a discount. Now, we also saw a single wallet dump 84 million in UST on Ethereum, and they dumped another 108 million on Binance, all helping this suspicion of whether this was a coordinated attack to try to depeg Terra. Okay, so let's take a quick look to see what Kwon's response was. At the time on Saturday, he jumped out and he made a very basic post. He just posted out here, "I'm up, amusing morning. You could listen to crypto Twitter influencers about UST depegging for the 69th time, or you could remember they're all poor and go for a run instead." Fine. By the way, if your girls are going to FUD, try to do it during my waking hours, please. Terra Chain is 24/7, but I am a new father, for crying out loud. Okay, it doesn't really give much in the way of what was going on, but we do get some updates later on. Now, shout out to this post here. Keitono Manfrini. Today's attack on Terra Luna UST was deliberate and coordinated. Massive 285 million UST dump on Curve and Binance by a single player, followed by massive shorts on the Luna price. So they were saying that they were able to tie this movement in with a bunch of people shorting Luna prices over the weekend and hundreds of Twitter posts. Pure staging. The project is bothering someone. So we have to read this with a pinch of salt. The shorts could have been on anyway. A lot of projects have a load of shorts loaded on over the weekend anyway, because you could see that the crypto market was suffering and Bitcoin was getting to a critical point. You could read into that. But more importantly was the single wallets dumping huge amounts on Ethereum and on Binance. That's particularly the cause for a coordinated attack on there. Now, the latest update we've got today is a very interesting one because the Luna Foundation Council voted to deploy 1.5 billion in capital. Okay, so 0.75 billion in BTC reserves and 0.75 billion in UST, which they're going to give to the exchanges. So if we go and take a look at how the Foundation Guard explained this, they said, look, the macro turmoil, everything is down. We're struggling across all asset classes. And relative to Terra, USD has experienced notable directional flow over the weekend, accompanied by similar volatility in Luna and BTC. While this flow has currently evened out, it's prudent to prepare for potential future volatility. And what they're referring to is obviously the price was falling over the weekend. We've seen that here on the chart. But I also want to show you the UST, because if I go over to the hourly, this is the peg. And normally, as you can see, it pegs across. Okay, it should be at exactly $1, and then it fell. It fell quite low here. This is quite a serious depeg, and it just kept falling. Then it tried to bounce back. It fell again, went up again, and it's still technically depegged slightly here. We need to be back up to here for your peg. Okay, so this is going to get recovered by, you know, people starting to use arbitrage to get that back. That's how algorithmically backed stablecoin works. But when it falls this much, then they need to go and put some funds behind it. And that's the latest tweet we've got, is to say they voted for a loan of 750 million worth of BTC, which they're going to give to OTC trading firms to protect the UST peg. And then the other 750 million loan, okay, is to accumulate BTC as the market conditions normalize. So they want to build out their UST reserves to protect the peg. Now, what did Kwon say in addition to this? Let's read through his tweet. He said, first, LFG is not trying to exit its Bitcoin position. The goal is to have this capital in the hands of a professional market maker such that they buy if UST price is less than the peg, they buy BTC if the price is greater than the peg. That's how you keep and maintain the peg, okay? So they want to give those funds to the market makers so they can keep it at all times at the peg and strengthening the liquidity around that peg. Kwon then goes on to say, while buys and sells of UST are not meaningfully directional now, we felt it was valuable to have capital ready to be deployed in the current market. As markets recover, we plan to have the loan redeemed to us in BTC, increasing the size of our total reserves. And by the way, guys, you can head on over here to this link and you can find the Luna Foundation Guard reserves, and you can keep an eye on their reserves over time as they build out their reserves. As you can see, the vast majority of their reserves, 2.65 billion worth, is in BTC. They've got a little bit of Luna, they've got a little bit of Avalanche, a little bit of USTC, and they're just playing around in here. Okay, so you can see how their reserves are moving here. So they're going to loan that out to the exchanges. We have hoped that the on-chain Bitcoin reserve system would be live by the time the Terra economy would contract, thereby obviating the need for LFG discretionary intervention. While this did not happen, allowing BTC to be redeemed against US on an on-chain DEX, we are just a few weeks away from a testnet launch developed by the Astroport team. Until then, the LFG Council decided to err on the side of caution. Fine, okay? So this is an interesting one, okay? So we'll have to keep an eye on this to see what happens, and as we know, this is something which we have to take seriously, right? And I think actually let's go through that. Shout out to Rootify again, who, if you read through his tweet, explains that this is not normal, because some people are going, hang on, this is nothing compared to May 2021, and he says, I disagree. Anchor Protocol's TVL is far bigger now. It's 50x bigger than it was then. It was 260 million 1 year ago, and it's billions now, right? A depeg today has a much bigger impact on the ecosystem. Completely agree. And then he says, what next? First of all, the effect of all of this was reinforced by the ultra bearish sentiment around crypto these days. With both BTC and ETH down around 50% from all-time highs, people are really starting to sell off all their crypto. I think the peg will restore to $1 within some days. I agree. And I think people will get back into Anchor. But if you were scared, he says here, if you were scared, then you should diversify, okay? If this event scared you, I definitely think you should. I think that pretty much sums it up quite strongly. It shows there's a few positives to take out this and a few negatives. Remember, I get a lot of people asking me, when do you start turning bearish on a project? And I wouldn't say this on its own would make you bearish on a project, but these are the kind of things you have to be keeping an eye on, right? If you have repetitive downtime on a project like Solana, if you see constant depegging or manipulation on a project like Luna, these things can get you worried, and rightfully so as an investor. Now you have to separate that from what FUD is. If FUD is there and you find the truth, then it's different. If you find weaknesses in the system, that is different, and you need to understand what those differences are. Now, a positive sign behind this is to, again, show how good a leader Do Kwon is at coming out and addressing FUD head on. He's always the most active in the community. He jumps in, and some projects don't do that. Okay, we saw Charles Hodgkinson come out the other day when a popular crypto YouTuber came out and said Cardano don't have a working DEX, and we saw how Charles Hodgkinson addressed the misinformation. We see how Do Kwon does that anytime there's any attack happening on its network. So that is a positive. We also saw how there's money behind these systems. We see that with Solana all the time. When the wormhole bridge got attacked, we saw how Jump Capital helped. Potentially, some are saying Jump Capital helped in this situation as well with Terra. We know that they have a tight relationship, and we know LFG have a big reserve anyway. And these are the kind of things that help a project have longevity, because these kind of weaknesses happen all the time. And that brings me back onto Phantom, because it's super crazy for somebody without that much backing as a project such as Phantom, how they've managed to technically keep their project so sound. And this just goes to show how you don't have technically as powerful a platform as Phantom has, which has managed to avoid these kind of issues, such as the Solana issues of timing out, or these the pegging issues that Luna are facing here. Then their leaders are helping to come and address some of that FUD, which is important. Overall, I think Root to Fi nails it, right? You need to be diversified. I own Luna. I'll continue to buy the dip on Luna here because I think this is an interesting price point. These are the kind of price points I like to buy in, versus the FOMO of all the way up at 119, right? This is how you make your arbitrage on these coins. This is when you want to be buying in. For me, that fundamentally didn't change everything in the project for me. The project still is where it is. We know that it can depeg. It wasn't the first time it's depegged, and it probably won't be the last. But the reason you invest in Luna is for the ecosystem, and you also believe in Do Kwon's wallet and the partnerships, Jump Capital and some of the others, to be able to have the backing to make sure this is too big to fail, right? That's part of it. It's like when you go put your money in a bank, you don't think that the bank is unable to have any bankruptcy or any issues or have a run on the bank, but you understand that governments intervene. And that's what we've seen time and time again in financial crises. And it's the same for these cryptos. It's understanding that there are people with serious wealth who are willing to back these projects. Even if they do depeg, there's cash there to cover some of those losses. So that was important. And for me, $58 here on Luna is a nice entry point. But again, for those who are maximalists, whether you're a Phantom maximalist, whether you're a Luna maximalist, whether you're a Solana maximalist, I don't know how you sleep at night, because any given project has proven itself to have difficult moments. Solana recently, Luna recently, Phantom recently, even Bitcoin, right? The fears around MicroStrategy potentially getting margin called, right? Or back last year when Tesla U-turned on whether they were going to accept Bitcoin payments. It's hard to be in any given one project because they can all have bad times and difficult moments at any given time. And that's going to cause you pain in your portfolio, and it can lead you to panic sell. Imagine you were buying Luna close to 119 up here, and then now you're panic selling at 58 because you hold a crazy bag of Luna, 60-70% of your portfolio, and you never diversified. That's why it's really important to diversify your portfolio. Understand that these ups and downs are all part of any crypto project, but it's our job in terms of in order to dissect out what is FUD and what is key structural issues with the project. And if we see repetitive weaknesses in the structural integrity or tech or marketing or PR of a certain project, then we need to act and adjust our portfolios accordingly. But if it's just FUD, then we need to identify that and then buy the dip on that FUD ultimately. So there you have it, guys. There's a quick update on what is going on for Luna. Really nice entry point here at 58. If you've not watched my video from earlier in the day, I do explain that I think the market can go down to more macroeconomic conditions are not in our favor right now. Markets continue to be spooked about a global slowdown and potential stagflationary type recession, which is not great at all. So we're going to be getting a test, I believe, at 30,000 for Bitcoin and maybe that critical level at 29. So we'll continue to monitor that as and when we get there. As always, guys, we appreciate this type of content. Smash up the likes and subscribe. If you like my perspective, consider checking out the links below to our course member live streams, ijaz.uk/member. As always, smash up the likes and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.